Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvisesha Shinivari Prasthaya Satarane Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Yesterday we said this is not a workshop about forgiveness, but a workshop about how to forgive. Are we ready to forgive? So, I have a question. Who knows what the word vulnerable means? Does anybody know what that word means? Vulnerable.
You're quite disposed to harm. You're disposed to harm.
Disposed to harm? Oh, not necessarily to harm, but you're open. You're not hiding anything. Who knows what the word duplicitous means? Duplicitous.
Two nature, resembling.
Of two natures. So what does that mean practically? Double dealings. Like Chandrika Pandit says, his words are like nectar, but in his heart there's poison. So duplicitous means you speak or you act in one way, but you mean something else or you're different. Whereas vulnerable means you're very open. Vulnerable means you're willing to admit a fault. You're willing to admit a mistake. You're willing to let people see your weakness. That's what it means, ultimately. Like men are supposed to be tough, right? So they don't ever want to show any weakness. But they may have weakness. And so vulnerable means that they would show it. They're willing to show it or admit it. So, for a workshop like this, we need to be vulnerable, which means to be open, not duplicitous, not dual, not say something but it's not what we really mean. We say something we don't mean sometimes so we can look good, because we know that's what people want to hear. Right? Here's a brahmachari, right? So he has to, it's hard for him to say something that doesn't indicate he's a tough brahmachari. It's better he's, just acts like he's a good brahmachari, says he's a good brahmachari. Because that's what everybody wants to hear. Everybody's happy. Right? You have a brahmachari, he's the number one book distributor, he gets up every morning at 2 o'clock, he's been going on Sankirtan for 10 years every day. Nobody wants to hear him say, I want to get married, because that goes against what everybody believes about him. But if he's vulnerable, then he admits, no, I have this desire, I have this need. If he's duplicitous, he has the need, but he pretends that he doesn't, and he tells everyone he doesn't. We've seen that in our movement, right? And then one fine sunny day, we don't see him in the temple. And we also notice one of the women is also missing. Has that ever happened? So being vulnerable would have prevented something like that from happening. It would have happened in the right way. So, as we said yesterday, that we want everyone to participate how much? 108%. So 108% means sometimes something may be difficult for you to do. And you're just going to not want to do it. And this is a really good time to be duplicitous and fake it like you're really doing it, when you're not. Right? Because you're here, you agree to do it 108%. So you want to look good like you're doing it. But inside, you may be afraid to do it. And you're not doing it. That's not going to help you. And it's not going to help the person that you're partnering with. It's not going to help anybody. So the mood we want to create is not a mood of faking it. We want to create the mood, if it's difficult, what do? We put our hands up in the air and we say, Krishna, help. This is difficult. So being vulnerable means, as Prabhupada says in his books, he uses the word, what's the word? Straightforward? He uses that word? What else does he use? Another word he uses? I'm thinking, anyway, straightforward. What does straightforward mean?
No duplicity.
No duplicity. We say in America, what you see is what you get. In other words, you look at a person, and the way they're speaking to you, the way they're behaving, that's who they are. What you see is what you get. Duplicitous means the way they're speaking, the way they're behaving is not who they are. What you see is not what you get. They're very nice, very humble. You know. There's a saying in Bengal, too much devotion. If you have a servant, and the servant has too much devotion, that means he's a thief. He's being extra nice. Too much devotion is the sign of a thief. Because he wants your trust. He's so nice he gets your trust, and then he steals. You trust him, you leave your watch out, you leave your money out, and it's stolen. So what you see is not what you get. You saw a nice person, but what you got was a thief. Why is this bad for bhakti, to not be straightforward?
One of the qualities given by Krishna of a Brahman, which is synonymous, according to Srila Prabhupada, with a Vaishnava, is arjavam. Srila Prabhupada also uses the word non-duplicitous. So, if we're not straightforward, it means that we really don't understand Krishna, in the sense that Krishna is within our heart. So, not being straightforward with others means that we have no understanding that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is there in the sun and the moon, witnessing us and our hearts. And also, not being straightforward in devotional service means that we're dealing with Vaishnavas who are very dear to Krishna. And if we don't deal with them in the proper way, if we're not honest, if we're not straightforward, if we're not sincere, then this will cause our bhakti. How can bhakti grow if Krishna is not satisfied? The whole purpose, just like we sing every day, Yasya Prasad Bhagavat Prasad, Yasya Prasad Nagati Kutopi. So if we don't please the Vaishnavas, who ultimately, of course that's talking about the spiritual master, but in ultimate analysis, a devotee sees, advanced devotee sees that everyone is my spiritual master. Everyone is teaching me something. one of the principles of this whole seminar is that I'm trying to be straightforward before Krishna, before everyone. I want to see everyone. I want to be a servant of everyone. This is Vaishnava. So, not being straightforward, it will be impossible to advance in devotional service. Because who are we cheating? We're not cheating ourselves if we're not straightforward. We're not cheating Krishna. And therefore you can't cheat anyone. As the saying goes, you can fool some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. So, not being straightforward ultimately means that, just like the saying goes, that if you tell a lie enough times, you start to believe it. So you may believe it, but ultimately Krishna will reveal your lack of sincerity, your lack of straightforwardness, and your bhakti won't progress.
So sometimes we're afraid to be straightforward and honest because we feel we'll be hurt. Or we feel what we told somebody will be used against us, right? And I know from living in Mauritius that there's 3 ways to get a message around. One is telegram, which you don't use so much. One is telephone, and one is teledevotee. And, you know, if somebody burps on the other side of the island, it becomes news in half an hour, right? Isn't it? Around the whole country. Isn't it? At least it was in Mauritius like that. Everybody knew what everybody else was doing. So, we may be a little concerned if I reveal something to another devotee here in this seminar, maybe it'll leak out. And it'll be heard around the country. So, yesterday, we said that we all have to promise, and here we're in front of the deities, we have to promise, and if we can't keep this promise, we should not stay here. That we're going to have a partner, and whatever our partner tells us, nobody else hears it. We're the only one. Nobody in this room hears it, unless our partner allows us. Nobody outside the room hears it. Not even your mother, or father, not even your guru, or their guru. Nobody.
But only that one person who's the most confidential friend. That's the only person. Of course, that person has a confidential friend who has another confidential friend. Another confidential. So that person we can't tell.
Yeah. So these are the playing rules of the game. I need my fire pit. We don't have. Oh. These are the playing rules of the game. Okay, so if anybody cannot play by these rules, then you can't stay here.
Holiness Guru Prasad Swami Maharaj ki. This Mahatma Prabhu ki.
So it's very important. It's very, 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 very what? Because we have to be able to share without fear that what we're saying is going to be told to anybody else. So is there anybody who thinks they cannot keep a secret what they're being told? If you think you can't be, then there's one door there and there's one door there. So you're not going to be a telephone, a telegram, or a teledevotee, right? You understand why this is important? Okay, so, all right, we're bringing the fire yajna. You can go right here. Who remembers why we're bringing the fire pit? I explained last night. Who remembers? Oh, we have potatoes. You're supposed to have wood. Potatoes in a bag and wood in the fire pit. Is anybody hungry? A little campfire, baked potatoes. There's a communication breakdown. I said potatoes in a bag. They ended up in a fight. Some kind of new ritual or something. Okay, well, I'll remind you in a minute. Now, what I need you to do is find a partner. So obviously, because you have things which are confidential, you may want to find somebody you feel comfortable with. But even if you find somebody you don't feel comfortable with, then we're asking everybody to make your partner feel comfortable with you. And when you sit with your partner, please assure them that I need a bag with potatoes. I have a bag with rocks. I don't know. It's not working for me. A bag with potatoes, and we need wood in the fire. Because we're going to burn it, but we have 2 days. So, find a partner, assure the partner that they're safe, that whatever they say is confidential, and assure your partner that you won't be duplicitous, that you will be truthful, that you will say what you will not make things up to look good. Okay, so everybody, you can move around and find a partner. It doesn't have to be who you're sitting next to. Get up, move around, find somebody that you'd like to be your partner. Everybody needs a partner.
You can do it? Eh? No, you don't.
Partners mean 2, not 3. At least when I went to math class, they said partners were 2. Is that still true? 2? If you don't have a partner, raise your hand. So, your partner, I think he just walked in, right there. You don't have a partner, do you? You just came? So there's a partner. Ladies, is there any lady that doesn't have a partner? Any ladies that are alone? 2s, right? Not 3s? Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, Prabhus and Matajis, this is going to be your partner. This person will be your partner for the next few days. So partners, give your partner a big hug and say, thank you for being my partner. Now please tell your partner that whatever they tell you will remain confidential and no one will hear it. You've said that in front of the deities, okay? This is serious. It's been said in front of the deities. Tell your partner, may a lightning bolt strike me on the head and kill me if I tell your secret to anybody. Not ready to do that one yet, are you? Alright, and now tell your partner, I will not be duplicitous. Whatever I need to tell you, I will be honest and tell you, without fear that you will tell anybody. Okay. Oh, you mean, yeah, we'll move them around. So, in Vaishnava Sangha, we learn from Rupa Goswami, one of the principles is revealing the mind. So this is an important principle. In dealing with any problem that you have, there's a saying, you are only as sick as your secret. Because your secret is like a disease. It's in the dark, it needs to come out into the light. You get sunshine. So whatever our disease is, we need to bring it up and discuss it. In the Japa workshops, one of the things we do is we discuss all the mistakes we make, all the bad habits we have. We bring it out, we discuss it. That's how we correct it. We did a workshop for men on sexual purity, and one of the main responses in that workshop was, I'm so relieved, I've never spoken about this to anyone before. It was a huge relief to speak about it. So when we hold it in and we struggle with it, right? It's just our problem. You bring it out, open it up to the sun, it will get solved. Okay? So we should feel good that we have a partner that is not going to tell anybody because they don't want to get struck by a thunderbolt and die. Right? Not that I have that much power that that would happen, but anyway. So the first exercise we're going to do, we explained yesterday, that we gave you time to think about a person that you would like to forgive. That's either somebody that you know you need to forgive, somebody maybe you're thinking and you've chosen, maybe it's yourself, and maybe you can't think of anybody, so you're going to make up a situation that would be impossible, you feel impossible for you to give. So maybe you create a person who came to your house and killed your mother, stabbed her or something. You said, I could never forgive that person. So that fictitious person will become the person you're trying to forgive. The person you may need to forgive could be in this room. They could be sitting next to you. It could be a very advanced devotee, and you feel bad that you need to forgive an advanced devotee. Don't feel bad, it's just true, and so deal with it. That's being vulnerable. You may need to forgive Krishna. Maybe something happened in your life, and you never forgave Krishna. Why Krishna? Why did you allow that? I had such a good business, and you destroyed it, or my mother died when I was 7. Krishna. Some people have issues with God, and maybe we don't want to admit it, but we have to see. Maybe we do. Maybe there's something that Krishna allowed to happen. And we still have an issue. We can't forgive him. This is not uncommon. Maybe we had a guru who gave up Krishna consciousness, who left his position, and it hurt us until this day. We like him, but still there's something we can't forgive him. Don't be afraid to face whoever it is, whatever it is. The bigger and the worse it is, the better for you to face. What do you think? Scared? Ready to face it? It's very important. This is for your benefit. It's not going to benefit me. It's for your benefit. If you run away from it, if you run away from facing a problem, you're going to carry that problem with you after the seminar. If you face it, you'll be free of it. And you'll be able to move on in your life. So it's important to face. Okay, so what we want you to do now is very, very briefly, 3, 4, 5 sentences, write down the story of how you were hurt and how you felt. And I'll give you an example. You remember my example? The guru who left? So my story is, I was in a temple, I was dedicated to this temple. The guru left, he didn't tell me, I felt betrayed, dishonored, the temple fell apart, I suffered in so many ways. 3, 4, 5 sentences. If you're not good in writing, just draw a picture. Do something that indicates your story. Because this is going to be the paper that you have the opportunity to tear up and put in the former potato pit, now the fire pit. This is the story that during this weekend you will have the opportunity to leave behind here for the rest of your life and never again have to carry it with you. So that's why we're writing on the paper. You write it in your notebook on a separate piece of paper, and after you write it, you tear that paper out. So you just have it ready. Does anybody not understand the exercise? Everybody needs to write their story, even if it's the story you make up. That story. If you're going to do a make-up story, if you have nobody to forgive, and you want to do a make-up story, then that's what it goes. If you think you have no one to forgive, I suggest you think more deeply to see if there is somebody that you have a problem with. But if not, you make up a story and then you write it down. What happened? What the person did? How you felt? And how it affected you till today? Because you may be affected by it more today than when it happened. Your life may have changed after it happened. You may have been affected for many years. Any questions? Yes?
My question is that if I had an experience in feeling hard.
You had an experience?
Yeah, in feeling hard.
In feeling hurt?
And I've already forgiven.
You've already forgiven them.
Then how should I...
Should you deal with that issue, you're saying? Again? If, when you see the person, talk about the person, there's no ill feelings at all within you, absolutely gone, then pick another issue. If there's still something there, it's not completely gone, you still talk about them, you still tell people what they did, you still feel in some way affected by what they did today, that your life is different, then deal with it. It's not completely gone yet. We'll have plenty of paper in there to burn. Four or 5 sentences, not a long essay, okay? What happened, how you feel, how you felt when it happened, how you feel now. Very briefly. We'll have more time to go into detail. Don't worry about if you think you're being offensive to another devotee by writing this down. Just whatever there, write it down. Be vulnerable. Don't pretend it's not there. Don't pretend you don't feel the way you do. Well, a devotee shouldn't feel this way. Okay. But you don't feel that way. So write down how you feel, not how you should feel. Okay? You understand the difference? Sometimes you ask somebody, how do you feel? And they say, how should I feel? But we're not asking how you should feel. According to Shastra, it said we should feel this way. But we're asking now, how do you feel? I know I shouldn't feel this way, but this is how I feel. This is where we begin, okay? We'll end up with how we should feel, but we're starting out with how we feel. Is that clear? Does that make sense? Okay. So, this piece of paper you've just written, right? This paper, you rip it out of your book, and you just have it. Can somebody give me a piece of paper? Just a blank. So let's say this is my paper. So something happens during the workshop. And I get inspired and I think, okay, I've carried these bad feelings towards this other person for too long. It's causing me too much suffering. It's affecting my life in so many negative ways. I just want to be over with it. So I get up at any time in the workshop. While I'm talking, while Maharaj is talking, in the middle of an exercise, sometimes we'll do a kirtan and we'll chant japa. I get up and I just walk up and I go like this. Tear it up and I put it in. And then what do? We celebrate. It's a big thing for somebody. So we celebrate. What do? We celebrate. How should we celebrate? What can we do? What? Give him a hug. Yes. As long as the him is not a her, it's fine. The hers are hers and the hims are him. Give him a hug. All 60 of us will hug him. Some way, celebrate. So it'll be a big celebration. So, the next exercise is going to be a little challenging for some of you. And this exercise is exercise number 2 on your paper. I think it says 2. If you go to page 2, it says exercise 2. The other things we've already gone over. So I will read this. This is exercise 2, and you'll find it on page 3. Is there anybody that doesn't have one of these handouts? If you don't have, they're on the table here. You can come get Everything you're going to learn this weekend is in this handout. And you'll have it with you to take home, to refer to teach others. Okay, so let's read. Tell the story of your hurt to your partner. Your partner will play the role of the person who hurt you. And so you speak to your partner as if you were speaking to your abuser. And this is what you'll tell them. What happened that upset you, exactly why you were upset, how it affected you at the time, how has it affected you since it happened. Okay, now this is going to be the hard part. And some of you may not want to do this in the temple for this reason. In this exercise, you fully express whatever emotions are inside of you, emotions that you have most likely been suppressing. This begins to help move these painful emotions out of you and begins to free up the negative energy you're using to keep your resentment alive. You then start to use the energy positively to overcome the resentment. Now, some of you may be thinking, you know, in Bhagavad Gita it says you should try to control your anger. Right? You control your senses. And now what Mahatma is saying, he said, don't control them. Just say whatever you want. You can scream if you want. If the person you're trying to forgive really hurt you and you're really upset, now Mahatma is saying, scream at them. Yell at them. Say whatever you want to them. And you're thinking, but that's not what I learned in the Bhakti program. Right? Did they teach you that in the Bhakti program? Or the Bhakti program? You yell and scream when you're upset? So why is Mahatma asking us to do this? Would you like to know why?
Evil.
Okay, we'll tell you. Go to the top of the page and we'll read. Make the most of all that comes and the least of all that goes. What does that mean? We'll explain. Suppressing your emotions buries feelings into your subconscious mind. Sanskrit, that's called chitta. Where they affect your life without your conscious awareness. In other words, have you ever been upset about something? Of course you have. And you're doing something, and for no reason you get upset. And it's not about what you're doing, it's about the other thing that happened before. Because that's upsetting you. Right? Sometimes a man comes home from work, and his wife's upset with him. And he's been gone all day. So he didn't do anything to upset her. Has that ever happened? Does that happen in Guyana? That women get upset at their wives? Once in a while? Maybe. Happens a lot in America. So sometimes a man may come home and his wife's upset and he's been gone all day. He just says something and she's upset. But it's something that happened before. And she hasn't dealt with it. So now it's coming up with something else. This is very common. So when we hold on to resentment, it does affect us in other ways. And sometimes we don't know how it's affecting us. But sometimes it's affecting us deeply. It's affecting how we deal with people. Sometimes we don't get close to people because we've been hurt by people. So the rest of our life we stay distant from people because we don't want to get hurt again. Because we haven't dealt with it. Does that make sense? There'll be many examples like that. I knew one man, he got married. It was a terrible marriage, which kind of worked in his favor, but he said it was such a traumatic experience that he vowed at that point to become a sannyasi. Because that one experience had such an effect that just when women scared him, he couldn't get near them. So, if that happens in the Hare Krishna movement, maybe that may have some positive effect. But generally, If you want to deal with women in a nice, balanced way, and you're like that, if one experience makes you crazy around women. So what happens is the experience is not dealt with, it's just suppressed. Suppressed means you hold it down, you don't acknowledge, and then it comes up. So in this exercise, we're going to bring it out. Are you ready to bring it out? We're going to have yelling and screaming going on here. Okay. So we're going to continue reading. By acknowledging and confronting your feelings, you begin to release the negative energy those feelings carry. Okay, so we have an example of this in the Shastra, of somebody releasing anger. And it's being facilitated by a great devotee. Does anybody remember that story? It's in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There was one person who got, okay, I'll give you a hint. He got very angry with Narada Muni, Daksha. And he was screaming at Narada Muni. You know the story? Because, oh, we're reading that chapter in the morning. So you know the story. So the sons of Daksha was a Prajapati. His service was to populate the universe. So he begot first, 100 sons, and then 1,000, or 1,000 and 10,000?
10,000.
10,000, yeah. Don't ask me how he did it, but that's what the Shastra says. So, so his sons, he was training them to populate the universe, and the way they did that is they would do austerities. And then Narada Muni saw them, and so these nice young men doing austerities, he said, better you remain brahmachari. And they said, okay. And so Daksha was mad, but he didn't say anything. But when it happened the second time to 10,000 sons, then he couldn't control himself. And he was yelling at Narada Muni. He was very, very upset. And the Bhagavatam says Narada Muni just let him yell at him. Right? You know that story? He didn't say anything. He just let him yell. And so it's explained that that's how Daksha was going to get over his anger. Narada Muni just listened to him and let him just, we say vent. Vent your anger. You want to say something about venting anger or any of this? Okay. So the process does have an example in our scripture. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to vent. What happens when you vent? So you have something inside of you, it's building up. This person did this to me. You're upset. Do you realize you carry that around every day? Did you know that? Okay, it's time for the potato skit. Would you like to see the potato skit? Raise your hand if you'd like to see the potato skit. Okay, there's enough people that want to see it. I'll do it. Okay. Once upon a time, a little boy went to school, and the teacher gave him an assignment. Does anyone have a pen? I need a pen for this assignment. Thank you. And the teacher said, go home and for every person you hate, write their name on a potato. So the little boy went home. Walked home from school. Mata, I need some potatoes. How many? 5. Okay. What for? I'll tell you later. 5 potatoes. Who do I hate? I write it down. George. As in Bush. Dick Cheney. And the other guys, whoever they're. Those are all the people I hate. I write them down, and I think, thank you. This exercise is really fun. I'm a little kid and I get to write names on potatoes of all the people I hate. And I'm thinking, well, maybe the teacher's going to let us throw darts at them, or throw these potatoes against the wall, or jump on them, or something. So we bring our potatoes to school. We're all excited, and the people I hate, look at these guys. Remember I told you how nasty kids are? Especially boys. I mean, this is like a boy's dream, carry these potatoes. So now the teacher says, okay, here's your assignment. And she said, you have to carry these potatoes every day with you. For 7 days, 24 hours a day. Wow. Everybody's completely depressed. 7 days? 24 hours? We can't even put them down? No. What's your assignment? You want to pass this class? You have to do this assignment. But teacher, what about in the shower? In the shower. What about when I sleep? When you sleep. What about when I eat? When you eat. But what if they start smelling because they got wet? Tough luck. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, just carrying them around, or maybe you attach them to your belt or something, But, and these are small potatoes. In America, they have big potatoes. So big potatoes are 3 times bigger. So after like 2 days, all the kids are like completely frustrated. And they're complaining to the teacher, this bag is heavy, this bag smells, I can't sleep. I have to eat with this terrible smell. Everything I eat tastes like smelly potatoes. I can't do this. No, 7 days. So every day they complain, and she wouldn't give in. So finally, on the 7th day, they brought their potatoes, and she said, okay, you can put your potatoes down on the table. And everybody put their potatoes down, and when they put their potatoes down, they made a sound of relief. How do you think it sounded when they put their potatoes down? What did it sound like? Everybody say, ah. What a relief. And then the teacher said, when you hate somebody, you carry them wherever you go, 24 hours a day in your heart. And you have to carry around the toxic smell of that hatred for that person. And all the poison of that hatred, you have to carry it around with you 24 hours a day, just like you were carrying around the potatoes. You like that story? Good story? It's kind of like Hare Krishna. It's like instant karma. As soon as we hate somebody, as soon as we have an ill feeling for somebody, what happens? Who suffers? Do they suffer or do we suffer? We suffer. We're hoping they suffer. We're hoping if I talk about them or if I hate them enough, they'll suffer. But there's a saying, envy is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. Not really logical, is it? If you drink poison, you hope the other person will die. That's what envy is. That's what resentment is. I'll hold on to this, and I will get back at them. We talked about this last night, didn't we? I'll get back at them by holding on to it. It's a huge illusion. We don't get back at them, we hurt ourselves. So we carry around the toxicity. Toxicity means something which is poisonous. We carry around something poisonous within our heart. So in this exercise, we want to start moving it out. Whatever thought you have, negative thought, has a negative effect physically and emotionally on you. And you can act in very strange ways just because of what happened to you 20 years ago. Was it still there? You still haven't gotten over it. Do you know anybody who's had something happen to them 5, 10 years ago, still, and you can see it's still affecting them? Have you seen that in anybody? Do you know anybody? I think it happens. It's obvious. Especially in our movement when people leave. You say, why'd you leave? Because back in 1986, this happened, and you haven't seen them. Well, maybe if you our younger devotees, you wouldn't see that. But for us who are older devotees, we have God brothers who we haven't seen in 30 years because of something that happened 30 years ago. And it's still affecting them. Very common. Okay, so let me read on. This is the next paragraph. Begins with, so it's the third paragraph here. Your emotions. Your emotions can provide you with intelligence. They often give you answers to deal with situations. If you allow yourself to experience the emotions and listen to what they are telling you, let me read that again. Your emotions can provide you with intelligence. They often give you answers to deal with situations. If you allow yourself to experience the emotions and listen to what they are telling you. In other words, we're asking you to not run away from what you're feeling, but to allow yourself to experience it. And you'll get some insight that actually help you. When you cut yourself off from feeling uncomfortable and hurtful feelings, you also cut yourself off from the emotional growth that comes with having to cope with upset, sadness, disappointment, and other negative emotions your hurt is causing you. In other words, I will give you an example. One devotee who's a counselor said, when you feel something negative, you shouldn't run away from it. And I always try to run away from it because if it's negative, I feel it's not the Krishna conscious thing to do to feel it. So what she said didn't make sense to me. She said, why would you want to feel it if it's wrong? He said, well, just try it. I said, okay. So one morning, I was feeling very bad about the fact that I had, for my whole life, hardly ever missed Mangalarti every morning. 35, at this point, probably 35, 36, 37 years. And then I got into a situation in my life where I was very busy and traveling and got off schedule, and I wasn't getting up early anymore. So then I thought, okay, I don't feel good about it. I feel a little guilty because Prabhupada wanted me to be up early. So this counselor said, well, just feel. Just go with your feeling. And I didn't want to go with that feeling because it was not a happy feeling. But I went with the feeling. I said, okay, I just felt guilty. I felt really bad feeling the feeling because it was a bad feeling. And then at a certain point I said, this feeling is a lot worse of a feeling than getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm thinking, if I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it'll be difficult, or I won't be happy or whatever. Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra, Jai Sri Gauratai, Open. So I started feeling so bad. Said, Mahatma, look at you, you're not getting up early, you're neglecting this, you're neglecting that. I just allowed myself to fully feel it. And then I realized, this feeling is much worse than just doing whatever I had to do to just get up early. So the feeling, it communicated. Allowing myself to experience what I was feeling communicated something to my intelligence. So what I'm saying is that your feelings could guide your intelligence. Isn't that interesting? That within your feelings, there's something to be learned. Feelings are there for a reason. Did you know that? I'll give you another example. Do you know why you feel guilty? You ever felt guilty about doing something? You ever said something like really bad about somebody and you felt guilty? You ever told a little lie and then you felt guilty? Why do we feel guilty? We feel guilty because we know we did something wrong, right? We feel guilty because we know we did something that we believe was not the right thing to do. It goes against what we know is the right thing. Because if what we do is the right thing, we'll never feel guilty, will we? We'll only feel guilty if we know it's wrong. Like if you don't know it's wrong, you won't feel guilty. And then you're eating meat, you're fine with eating it. And then I say, eating meat is murder. And now you feel guilty when you eat meat, because you know it's wrong. So whenever you do something which is out of alignment with what you believe to be right, you'll feel guilty. So what do the feelings of guilt tell you? If you allow yourself to feel the guilt, what do they tell you? They say, you did something wrong. Right? Or you may feel guilty and then you just ignore it. Pretend you didn't do anything wrong. Just suppress it. Just push it down. Don't feel anything. Be numb and go eat your meat or whatever you do. And say, there's nothing wrong with this. But if you're sensitive and you allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, you realize, oh, I feel guilty for what I did. And then you start to understand why. So your feelings can help you. That's why it's important not to suppress them. And that's why in this next exercise, we're encouraging you not to suppress them. Because it's going to help you. We're encouraging you to face what you feel and express it. What do you think of that? Is that possible? Nobody can do it? You can try, right? Okay, let's read on. This is a quote from an author on forgiveness. It begins, many people. Many people are afraid to forgive because they feel they must remember the wrong or they will not learn from it. The opposite is true. Through forgiveness, the wrong is released from its emotional stranglehold on us, so that we can learn from it. Through the power and intelligence of the heart, the release of forgiveness brings expanded intelligence to work with the situation more effectively. In other words, by going directly into it, rather than running away from it, you get through it and you release it. But we generally think we'll release it by pushing it down and pretending it's not there. But when you do that, you want to say something? When you do that, you don't get rid of it, you just get it to a level where you don't have to deal with it. It's kind of like you have a disease and you just deny you have it, but the disease doesn't go away. You just pretend it's not there. But it's hurting you. So Maharaj is going to speak now.
Just to illustrate this point, there's two very beautiful verses from the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. This is 11th canto, chapter 20, texts 27, 28. So, having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, this is Krishna speaking to Uddhava, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. So here Krishna is instructing us that we know sense gratification is wrong, so we shouldn't suppress it, because later on in the purport it explains that if you try to suppress it, or if you, even worse, if you think, oh, this is bad and I can't give it up, therefore I start feeling so morose that I just give up devotional service. I give up trying to improve. So Krishna himself here is saying that ultimately one has to confront one's sense gratifications, one's attachments, one's desires, one's envy, all these things, And then actually by bringing that out and understanding this is not very good, but it's there. Let me work on it. Let me pray to Krishna. Let me continue to worship. And in a happy mood, a joyous mood of serving Krishna. Because that's the only way to serve Krishna. And then, by that, of course, it's a very long purport, about 4 pages. But the point is that by not feeling so remorseful that we suppress it, and it just makes it worse, and I have something else which I'll read a little later about the same thing, then we can deal with it. So the same thing in forgiveness. If you bring it out, just like Mahatma Prabhu was saying, it may take some time. You may not be able to throw that paper in the pit right away, but you're dealing with it. You're knowing this is not so good, but it's still bothering me. So, I'm just applying this particular principle to our situation. But eventually, it will go into the pit.
Maharaj, I just got a question. I seem to remember reading somewhere around that part of the Bhagavatam where the focus was actually feeling remorseful about it, and the Lord within the heart, it says, Dunoti Sarvam Hrides Anivishto, that the Lord from within the heart will work, or he would act. I'm wondering if there's some way.
Feeling remorseful, and the Lord within the heart will what?
Will free one from whatever he's suffering or...
Yeah, I remember that, and I think it's right here in the purport. I remember also. Anyway, well, I'll look for it and then I'll bring it out later.
But the same point. The point is, Rajarshi is saying, devotee sometimes fails to execute his service properly, or fails to control his senses or her senses. But then the devotee feels remorseful. Oh, look what a rascal I am. Look at how bad I am. And through that remorse, Krishna does what?
He cleanses.
He cleanses, he purifies. So, the remorse is an emotion which the devotee is fully experiencing. He's not running away from the experience. He's allowing himself to feel what he feels. There's a saying in Buddhism, experience what you're experiencing. So what does that mean? That means maybe you're feeling something, but you're suppressing it, so you're not actually allowing yourself to feel it. So feeling remorseful is very good in Krishna consciousness. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he expresses in his songs all kinds of feelings, which are seen to be, from the material point of view, very negative. I'm very low, I'm envious, I'm jealous. That's what he's feeling, and he's not running away from it. So that's what we want to do in this next exercise. We're preparing you now to do it. We don't want you to run away from what you're feeling. We want you to acknowledge what you're feeling and experience it, because it will begin to release. Yes?
After hearing the potato story, I feel I want to pierce the earth and put it in the fire.
If you want to, I won't stop you. Do it, go for it. We can experiment on you with our first celebration. Who's going to give him a big hug? At least somebody hug him, come on. He's the first brave soldier. Still, you have to go through the rest of the workshop as if you haven't yet forgiven. Okay. So we're on the second to last paragraph. It begins by connecting. By connecting with your feelings, you activate your buddhi, intelligence, to process your feelings. And we explained this already. Without confronting your feelings, the buddhi, also known as the fire of mental digestion, cannot digest those feelings. Be open to learning what your feelings are telling you. So we discussed that. You allow yourself to feel, you'll get some guidance. And here's a quote. Forgiveness is freeing up and putting to better use the energy once consumed by holding grudges, harboring resentments, and nurturing unhealed wounds. It is rediscovering the strengths we always had and relocating our limitless capacity to understand and accept other people and ourselves. So, what happens is, if we hold on to resentment, it takes a lot of energy. Mental, physical, emotional energy. You're always thinking about it, you're upset about it. And once you tear up your paper, you feel a little better now? Feel a little lighter, a little relief?
Yeah, it's actually carrying some burden for that period, not so.
Yeah, so you can feel, something, there's energy there that goes. Okay, so if you go to the bottom of the page, we'll describe the exercise a little more. You remember the exercise you're going to do now with your partner is, your partner is going to play the person you want to forgive, and you're going to tell them how you feel. So this is, we'll read more to help you understand how to do this. In this exercise, you fully express whatever emotions are inside of you, emotions that you have most likely been suppressing. This begins to help move these painful emotions out of you and begins to free up the negative energy you are using to keep your resentment alive. Do you realize that if you hold, this is so interesting, that nobody realizes this. If we have resentment, the reason we have it day after day after day is we keep it alive. Otherwise, if we don't keep it alive, it'll die. Do you realize if we're holding on to resentment, it means we have the fire under the pot of resentment and it's boiling every day. And if we just turn the flame off, it'll go away. Isn't that interesting? I bet you didn't think of that before. You have some jealousy, envy, whatever it is, you're keeping the fire of jealousy going. But in your mind, you may be thinking, no, I'm envious because this person is so bad. But the reality is, no. The fire is boiling. And we turn it on, and we can turn it off. Isn't that interesting? Different way of looking at things. So we say, this begins to help move these painful emotions out of you and begins to free up the negative energy you are using to keep your resentment alive. It takes energy to keep it alive. Right? Does that make sense? Keep your resentment alive, you have to put out some energy. Keep fanning it. You then start to use the energy positively to overcome your resentment. So let's turn the page. We'll finish. This is all preparing you for this exercise, because this exercise is very important. So we're taking time to make sure you do it properly. Make sure you don't hold anything back. Make sure you give 108%. It is essential that you allow yourself to fully express and accept your feelings. Don't hold back your words or feelings. The purpose of this exercise is to actually stir up those feelings, to let them all out. Get angry if you like. Have a temper tantrum or scream if you need to. So we're going to give you the option to go outside, in the Prasad area, on the grass, over there on the street. Of course, the neighbors might call the police if somebody's beating their wife or something like that. But if you actually feel like you're really upset and angry and you want to express it, you may not want to do it in front of the deities. You may not feel comfortable. So if that's the case, go outside, or if you feel more comfortable in expressing it outside. Because here we're close, and you may not want other people to hear you cursing or whatever you're going to do. I've actually had very elevated devotees cursing in this exercise. Believe it or not. There's a lot of anger in a lot of us that's never been released. And if you allow yourself to just let it go, you'll be shocked at what comes out. Get angry if you like, have a temper tantrum, or scream if you need to. If talking about what happens is upsetting, cry. say whatever you need to tell your offender about how his actions have affected you. As long as you resist experiencing an event, which in this case means connecting fully with the suffering this event caused you, its memory affects your life today and literally pushes your life around. Accept and fully re-experience the resisted feelings connected with your resentment. So sometimes something bad happens to us and it's so bad we immediately suppress it because we can't even believe that such a bad thing happened, and that's how we deal with it. So in this exercise, we want to bring it up. Okay? So, this exercise is not for sissies. You know what a sissy is? You know what a sissy is? Right? If you don't know, you can tell by the word, right? You sissy, get up and fight. So this exercise is not for sissies. Yeah. We have two partners, so I will demonstrate. If Maharaj were my partner, he will be the person that I'm trying to forgive. So now he becomes this sannyasi who left. So now I have to see in him that sannyasi. All right? Well, maybe we should do it with him because he's not a sannyasi. It's getting too touchy here, right? So what's your name? Balaram. So Balaram now becomes so-and-so Maharaj. I don't want to tell you his name. And then I talk to him. He's my partner. I say, so Maharaj, you left. You didn't tell us. This happened, that happened. How could you do that? But I don't say it like that. I say it as I feel it. So I could be very angry. Like I could scream at him and say, how the hell could you leave your disciples? You left the temple. You just want to express how you feel. You just don't want to say, oh Maharaj, what you did was really bad. I'm really angry. You tell your partner, your turn. But you want to feel it. You want to actually get it. Because if you feel it, what it does is it starts to relieve it. It's stuck in there and starts to relieve it, just as Daksha, his anger was being relieved by venting. So really allow yourself to experience it. Don't be embarrassed. And remember, your partner is not going to tell anybody. If you feel safer in a place where nobody's going to hear you, just find some corner in the Prasadam hall, outside in the garden, that garden, next door, wherever you have to go. Partner, first part you decide, you'll start, you say whatever you want to say, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, scream, yell, cry, jump up, just don't hit anybody. And then you switch. And then you switch, and then the other devotee, he does the same thing. Does anyone have any questions on this exercise? Remember I said some things might be difficult? Just do it. Just have trust. Trust in me that it is okay to do this. It'll help you. Okay? So let's begin. When you finish, if you go out, when you finish, just come back. You can stay here, go wherever you want. Hare Krishna. Because many people just think about themselves, right? Their whole life is just about what they can get for themselves or their family. Many people don't think beyond their family, maybe their neighborhood. But a devotee, he thinks about other people. He's not thinking about himself so much. And so, when we are resentful, rather than making the world or giving to the world more compassion, now we're giving to the world resentment. Strange, isn't it? As devotees that we would do such a thing. It's like we're adding more resentment to a world where there's already overflowing with resentment, right? Where we as devotees are supposed to be adding more compassion. And that's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentioned, as I said yesterday, he said a devotee thinks like you're saying, what right do I have to cause anybody suffering? Why would I want to cause anybody suffering? They're already suffering. So, when we become free of resentment, then we're making the world better. We're adding more compassion into the world. And if there's more people like that, the world becomes a better place. And that's the mission of Krishna consciousness. And so as devotees, we need to genuinely be compassionate and train others to be compassionate. And then we have a better movement, right? So you wanted to say something?
I think it's appropriate at this time to talk about Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj was, a very young boy, but he was very intelligent and very advanced for his age. And so, when he tried to climb on his father's lap, his father actually wanted him to come, but he was trying to keep peace in the family. So he saw his wife, Suruchi, was not approving at all. And then Dhruva was still determined. And then she said, "You can't do this. If you want to be on my lap, you perform austerities and worship the Supreme Personality of God." Now, of course, she wasn't advising pure devotional service. She was saying, you worship the Lord so that, you can get some material benefit. But in any case, he couldn't forgive his father at that point. So he went to his mother. And his mother became very angry also at what had happened. And then she said, but she contained herself. She actually understood the situation, and she said, "My dear Dhruva, that you should try to act in such a way that never creates any inauspiciousness for others." So she was telling him, you should forgive. And you should also understand that any pain you cause to others will simply cause you more pain. So right there in the Bhagavatam is a very great illustration. And then, but still, he couldn't accept it. So sometimes forgiveness may be the best answer, but we may not be ready. Just like maybe there's a few people that haven't torn up the paper yet, or not ready to do it. So they shouldn't feel bad. Even such a great devotee, such as Dhruva Maharaj, could not give up his resentment. Then, and his mother said, the solution is, she told you the right thing, you should worship the Supreme Lord as all great yogis and saintly persons do, and you'll find relief. So Dhruva Maharaj left, and Narada Muni heard about this, and he told him, he instructed him, he said, a young boy like you cannot perform the austerities and the necessary things to worship the Supreme Lord. And Dhruva still couldn't understand. He spoke very intelligently, especially for a 5-year-old boy. And he said, I'm a Kshatriya. Kshatriyas, they don't give in. So as long as we identify with something we're not, as Mahatma was saying yesterday, that as long as we believe that this is what I am, this is what I believe, this is what I am, and it's not, what Srila Prabhupada, what the Bhagavatam, what Krishna is instructing us, then we can never be properly situated. But because he at least, then Narada Muni said, all right, I can see he's determined, so let me give him instruction. You chant this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You do these austerities, and the austerities that Narada Muni gave him were for 7 days, but he did for 6 months austerity. And then his anger was so great that when it was actually creating, his whole mood was so powerful that it was creating a disturbance in the universe. But because he was worshipping Krishna, that disturbance was becoming, the Lord was entering into his heart, which created another disturbance in the universe. And then finally, when he saw Krishna, he finally was able to forgive. And if we look at the Bhagavatam, practically speaking, you look at so many stories in the Bhagavatam. It's about forgiveness. Now I'll speak about another one a little later, speaking about another aspect as soon as we finish this exercise. So the story of Dhruva Maharaj. And then later on, when he was the king, and his brother was killed by a yaksha, he began to kill the yakshas right and left, and this yaksha, that yaksha. And then at the very, and then he was instructed, this is not good, this is not the way to do things. And then Yaksharaj, Kuvera, told him that, please stop this. And when he heard that, he said, all right, thank you very much. He forgave, immediately he forgave. And then Yaksharaj said, so I'll give you any blessing you want. He said, all right, give me the blessing of pure devotional service. So Dhruva Maharaj, after meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though he was a Kshatriya and he was vengeful with a right, he understood that what is the use of vengeance? It's just creating so many problems. I'm fighting with the yakshas, they're dying. And so sometimes when we receive a little instruction or we do these exercises, finally it sinks in, like with Dhruva Maharaj. It takes some time, but it sinks in.
Thank you. So we're going to do, yes?
So yeah, in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, we take the instruction of Dattavara and go and search for, at the end of Yati Vishnu. And in the case of Daksha, when he was insulted by Narmuni, of course Narmuni is a 100% saint. He could have taken the insult from Daksha.
Yeah.
But our situation, sometimes we try to help the devotee. And because of the devotee, lack of responses, we see that insulted them. So they respond negatively to us. And then in the case like, we might probably be mature enough to understand how this devotee responds. So it affects us. So how we can help that situation?
Well, as Mahatma Prabhu said yesterday, somebody may do something, and like you may try to instruct them, and of course, as Chanakya Pandit said, when you try to instruct a foolish person, they become more angry, and become worse, which is actually what happened with Daksha. He didn't understand Narada Muni's instruction, which, those that are following the Bhagavatam will see in about another 15, 20 days that he didn't learn his lesson. But still, still a saintly person, or one who wants to be Krishna conscious, will forgive them. So that's the important thing to remember. It doesn't mean, as it's very important to understand this point, which was made yesterday, and you'll see when you read this manual. It doesn't mean to forgive someone, it doesn't mean that they're right. Because sometimes that's what holds us back from forgiving. We think, well, if I forgive them, then it means that they're right. They may not be right. But a Vaishnava forgives. And no matter, we want to forgive them because by giving up that negative energy, we can help them just as Narada Muni tried to do with Daksha. Bring him to the point of releasing his anger, releasing his frustration, and then he'll realize, once that's gone, that I don't need this. So we want to give them the right example. We don't want to fight fire with fire. That never works.
One question. I remember sometime back, probably 20 years.
I have to repeat these questions for the mic. You remember sometime 20 years ago?
20 years ago that I wasn't wrong, but I was instructed by my guru to ask for forgiveness.
You were instructed by your guru to ask forgiveness?
And it was very difficult for me.
Even though you weren't wrong?
Yeah, I wasn't wrong. Because it was things that I saw with my own eyes. So, I said to him, look, this is what I saw. But because you're instructing me to ask the person for forgiveness who was wrong, I went ahead and do that. But
What was the result?
well, the way I did it because I was advised to do that. But after many years, then I realized that, it doesn't hurt me to ask somebody, to forgive. Forgiveness, even though I'm not wrong. I don't know if you can. What happened too is that when you're in your right and you ask somebody for forgiveness, then the person who's wrong thinks that, you know what, I am right, he has to ask me for forgiveness. How you explain that?
You're saying, how do you deal with asking another person for forgiveness or telling a person that you forgive them?
No, asking the person for forgiveness.
That you did something wrong, you ask them for forgiveness, and then your question is, if they say, you didn't do anything wrong?
Right.
No.
No, the thing is that I was not wrong.
But you're asking for forgiveness anyway.
Yeah, he felt he was right, but he had to ask the other person forgiveness. So the question he's asking, what is it that you're doing to that individual? That he now thinks that
right.
he made to believe that he is right.
Oh, so you think you're making it worse? That's the question. Are you making it worse? Or are you making it better?
You have to tell me that.
You could definitely make it worse, because now the person's thinking, what did you do to me? You guys were friends, and now you're saying, please forgive me. Then you're thinking, what did he do? Did he go out last night with my wife? Or, steal the money out of my car? So, you have to see the utility of it. That sometimes if the person feels that you've done something wrong, even though you haven't, and you realize that's the only way to make peace in the relationship, then you look at the outcome. If the outcome is beneficial, why not? We're humble enough to do that. But if that's not the situation, it could be very strange for that person. And he could imagine that you've done something that you didn't do. Otherwise, why would you ask for forgiveness for nothing? At least I would feel that way. I would be thinking, what did he do? I would ask him, what are you going to say when he asks, well, what did you do? You're going to say, I didn't do anything. My guru told me to. You wanted to say something?
I just had a little comment to make about little different scenarios. Sometimes, maybe especially when you're traveling, you spend a little while with some people, and when you're leaving, then you may say, please forgive me for any offenses I may have.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah,
So
that's different.
that's like a general.
The person in the house is supposed to say that, not you. Although you could say that, but they're supposed to say it. After they feed you 3 meals a day for a week, wash your clothes, and when you're leaving, they give you money, then they say, please forgive me if I made any offenses. That's culture. Yeah, but that makes sense. That's... So, we're going to go to another exercise. I'm seeing that this workshop's moving along very quickly, so I'm going to skip a few things I don't think we need to do. And if we answer any more questions, we won't have time. Can we wait? I want to make sure we get through these two. Okay? Are you not satisfied with the answer?
Yes,
Okay. I think, if you go up to someone and say, I don't know if I offended you, but if I have, please forgive me, that would be different. But just to say, please forgive me, for what? just opens up the question to imagination that you might have done something you didn't do. I think. But this is good, if I have offended you, please forgive me. And then the person who you're speaking to should be kind enough to say, yes, if you did do anything, although I don't know, but if you did, I forgive you. We can't say, well, I'll think about it, I don't know. Especially if someone has committed an offense to you and they ask for forgiveness, then if they don't get forgiveness, their Krishna consciousness will suffer. So then naturally a kind-hearted Vaishnava will say, of course I forgive you. Because they don't want to see them suffer. But if we're really holding on to resentment, we might say, I'll think about it, or I don't want to. Because now you have them in your hand. Because they're coming to you for forgiveness, and you can just hold them and go, well, I'll think about it. Come wash my toilet, and maybe I'll forgive you. So, go to page 6. We're going to jump to exercise number 5. And exercise number 5 is actually a continuation of the exercise we just did. And I will just read it to you. It's on the bottom of page 6. Exercise 5 on the bottom of page 6. And this exercise is called Visualize Your Pain. Quote, I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with the pain. Like sometimes you're in so much pain from what happened, you hold on to your hate because your hate is it's like aspirin, so you don't have to feel the pain. But once you let it go, there's a lot of pain there. And some of you experience that pain, maybe all of you experience that pain. So what we're going to do in this exercise is get a visual image of the pain we're feeling. So let me read you the instructions here. Allow yourself to fully connect with and feel the pain of your resentment. So this is what we did in the last exercise. So we're taking it a little further. Notice where in your body and or outside your body you feel the pain. So you're just allowing yourself to experience the pain that your resentment is causing, the pain of the experience that caused the resentment. As you feel the weight and intensity of this burden you carry, and let these feelings create a visual image of your pain. And then once you do this, you either write down or you draw an image. So I'll give you some examples that have come up in other workshops. We allow the devotees and say, just what does your resentment feel like? Like, remember the potatoes? What do those potatoes feel like? You're carrying them around. What does it feel like to hold on to resentment for the person? You create a visual image. It feels like, and here are some examples, going into labor, but not allowing the baby to come out. A cement block covering my body, making me unmovable. Sitting in a prison and not leaving, yet the cell doors are not locked. These are from seminars we had in the past. Bathing in a lake of poison, the water being self-created. So on a separate piece of paper, we want you to write down what your image is, or you can, if you're artistic, you can draw a visual image. But first, we want you to feel your pain a little more. In this part of the workshop, we want you to feel, how does it feel to hold on to this resentment? What does it feel like? Maybe it feels you're very depressed and down. Maybe it feels very weighty, like things are weighing on your head. Maybe you feel very angry, like fire. Maybe you feel like this person imprisoned. Maybe you feel like monsters are all around you. Whatever you feel, write it down on a separate piece of paper or draw a picture of it. feel like a vulture attacking you. Maybe you feel like a boxer, but instead of punching, you're punching yourself. You're hurting, you're beating yourself up. Just allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling, and as you feel, the image will naturally come. Are there any questions on this, how to do this? Just feel whatever you're feeling, and whatever image comes to mind. I feel like a poison locket in my heart. You have a notebook? Notebook. You need a notebook. Do we have extra notebooks? Notebook and pen? You have a pen? Does anybody need a notebook or a pen? Raise your hand. Okay.
Yes, Lord.
Sridhani, someone needs a notebook and a pen. Do we have extra?
We give to all the students very much.
Gave them out last night. Does anybody have an extra piece of paper they can, or an extra notebook and a pen?
Yeah.
They can give. Will you raise your hand? If you need it, raise your hand. Everyone should do this exercise. Ready? You have a paper? So we need more paper. Anyone have more paper, pen? You both need paper, pen? You just need, right? All you artists out there, this is your big chance. How do you feel? Get in touch with how this resentment makes you feel. What you're carrying around, what you've been carrying around. And if you've given it up, then go back an hour and reconnect with the feeling. What's it like to carry resentment in your heart? How do you feel? A picture you can show us. If you don't have a picture, then you can explain it to us. Or, how many of you like to act? We have actors here in the audience? Everyone in Guyana, they say in India everyone's an actor, and the worst actors make it to the movies. So there's probably a lot of actors here. If you like, you can act your image out rather than tell. You can act it out, or you can act it and tell it. So, who would like to go first? I don't know if we should film this or not. Bummer, yeah. I don't think they want to be in front of the camera.
So you can turn on the camera. So, for our viewers, we're talking about how it feels when you hold resentment in the heart. So, actually what it feels like to me is a cloud. Just a cloud hanging over the head, just like sometimes you see the mountain. Well, you don't see mountains here, but when you see mountains, sometimes in the morning, there's a lot of clouds, and it obstructs. A cloud obstructs vision. So I know whenever I've had some bad feelings toward others, and forgetting the philosophical point that it's actually coming from me, whatever they're doing, ultimately it's coming from me, I can't get anything done. It just hovers in the mind like a dark cloud over the head. And no matter what I try to do, can't think about anything, can't get anything done. And by ultimately remembering that, this is unproductive, and the cloud goes away, as it says in the Bhagavatam, Niharam iva bhaskaraha, just like the sun coming up, it dissipates the fog. No. So when the sun of Krishna comes up and I realize that this is useless, then it just goes away. Hare Krishna.
Thank you all for sharing. Do we have one actor who wants to act it out? We are desiring some entertainment this evening. Any actor here? Who's the actor? I know you have actors.
You have people like Dattavara, you have people like Mahatma, Shantri, Vrindavana.
So shy. Maybe tomorrow. Okay. So, we want to have a little discussion now. We have a little bit of time left. Interesting discussion of something that I realize is a problem, probably for all of us to one degree or another, not just with forgiveness, but in general. And it's the problem of reading Shastra, particularly reading stories about people, great devotees, who do incredible things that seem so beyond what we could ever do. And because they're so beyond what we can do, sometimes when we read them, we discard them. It doesn't really have an effect on us because we think, well, I could never do that. That's just pure devotees. So I want to talk about that. I'll give one example, and then Maharaj can speak a little bit about this. It's an interesting experience I had. I think we're all familiar with the story of Dattavara. And Dattavara born as a Muslim. You say Muslim here, or Muslim, or what do you say? Muslim. He was born as a Muslim, and he took to what appeared to be Hindu religion. So it set a bad precedent that a Muslim becomes a Hindu. And so the idea was, amongst the Muslims, that he needs to be publicly punished to set an example that if any Muslim tries to become a Hindu, you will be killed. And that was not publicly punished, but publicly killed. So he was brought, it's said, to 21 marketplaces because I think they thought they were going to kill him in the first or second. So they wanted wanted to make a demonstration. So in the first one, they couldn't kill him. They were hitting him. Were they whipping or sticks? Or some places it says.
It just said whip.
It was whipped, so it could be stick or whip, with the intention of killing him. And so he wouldn't die. When they go to the next marketplace, he wouldn't die, and the next marketplace wouldn't die. And in this story is also described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, and it explains his mentality, what he was thinking. And it said, while these guards were trying to kill him, he was thinking in his mind, for what they're doing, they will suffer. But he wasn't thinking it in an vengeful way, like we might think. You know, someone's beating us and we're thinking, you're going to suffer for this. You know, God's going to kill you. And you're praying to God, kill this person, let some terrible thing happen. He was thinking they're going to suffer, but he was feeling bad. He said, oh no, they're going to suffer for what they're doing. And they're just executing the orders of the Kazi. So he was praying to Krishna to forgive them for what they were doing to him. It's kind of amazing, isn't it? Don't you think? Somebody's trying to kill you, and you're praying to God to forgive them. This is what Jesus did. So the first time I read this story, I still had this issue with this GBC sannyasi guru. And I was extremely inspired by this story, because it's such a wonderful story, because it's so rare to ever find a person like that. I mean, how many people do you think are walking the planet today who would pray for somebody who's killing them? Is there anybody? I mean,
One question, Mahatma.
only one?
Are we have to become, or we have to become like that before we go back to the spiritual world?
More than that. You know, one lecture Prabhupada said, if you have a pinch of desire, even to eat some sweet, you can't go back to God. Of course, Prabhupada's very merciful, but I would say that is a symptom of pure bhakti. Let's just say that. That's a symptom of pure bhakti. That compassion hits that position where you can pray for your enemy. Now, whether you need that to get your visa to Goloka, or whether you'll develop that when you get to Goloka, we'll talk about later. We don't know for sure. But don't get any ideas that you can be a jerk and just make it your way in the back door, you know, bribe the guard. Okay, it's time for a joke. So this man, after he died, he went to the gates of heaven. And the angel at the gate said, he looked up, he said, your name's not in the book. Because your name has to be in the book if you're going to go to heaven, right? So then the man said, but I gave $5 in church. So the angel got bewildered. Oh no, he gave $5 in church. Maybe he has a right to get into heaven now. He did some service. So he goes to God to ask him, you know, God, he's not in the book, but he gave $5. Then he comes back, tells the man what God said. He said, God said to tell me to give you back your $5 and tell you to go to hell. Does that answer your question? So, as I was saying, I was very inspired by this story. That here, this is so pure. This is like, it doesn't get any purer than this. I mean, compassion, it doesn't get any greater than this. That you're praying for those who are not only killing you, but they're torturing you without any sympathy. I was so inspired. But I never gave up my resentment to this GBC sannyasi group. even after reading that story, even after being inspired by it. And I began to think, why is this? I'm still holding on to it, even though I read the story. So we want to talk a little bit about this, because there are so many stories we've heard like this that have not changed us. Why are we not changed by these things? What's going on? So Maharaj will begin exploring this topic.
Just to continue that story, and maybe it begins to open up the... We didn't practice this, by the way, it's just so spontaneous. So, after Haridas was whipped, the guard said that, will you please die? Because if you don't die, we're going to get killed. And so he said, oh, certainly. So he went into samadhi, very deep samadhi. He fell on the ground, but Krishna became fully manifest in his heart. So then the Qazi, there was an evil Qazi. The Nawab was not so bad. He was a little sympathetic. He saw that he was a saintly person. So the Nawab said, so now we should bury him. The Qazi said, no, you don't bury him. If you bury him, then he go to heaven. Throw him in that Ganga like all the Hindus. And so they tried to throw him in, couldn't move him, because Krishna manifested in his heart. And finally he just kind of rolled into the river and, kind of made it look like he just went down the river. And he came out, and then the Brahmins, where he came out in his village, down the Ganga, they were saying, Haridas, these people, for what they did to you, they deserve the worst of all sins. The worst of all reactions. And Haridas said, no, actually, no, I deserve to be punished more, because I listened to blasphemy against the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They spoke badly about Krishna, and I just sat there. So I should be, punished, not them. So that's the degree of, not only was there a degree of compassion, but a degree of realization, which a devotee, and actually a pure devotee has, that, it's my fault. So sometimes also, that helps us connect with, the forgiveness principle, is understanding it's easier to forgive if I understand that ultimately whatever this person did, whatever they did, whatever this Qazi, this Nawab did, it's just, he said Krishna was so merciful, he just gave me a slight little reaction, being whipped. And by the way, in the beginning, the Qazi said, we'll whip you in 22 marketplaces. If you survive, then you can go free. Because he said nobody can last. But he did last until the 22nd marketplace. Then he, feeling compassion for the guards. So he was just thinking, as Srila Prabhupada has said so many times, that a devotee thinks, whatever I got, it's just a small little, remnant of, by Krishna's mercy, of what I should have actually experienced, which would have been 10, 100 times more. So, of course, when we hear that part, it even makes Haridas even more unapproachable, his position, seemingly. Another example we were discussing today was Prahlad Maharaj. His own father wanted to poison him, and not only poison him, but poison him through his own mother, make it even worse. It wasn't like just give him some poison, but the mother has to give him poison, and she refused. And he said, well, he's going to die one way or the other, so, poison's not so bad. So of course, he offered it to Krishna. And so many different ways he tried to kill him, this way, that way, this way, that way. And then, personally, he took his sword. He was going to cut, he actually was going to cut him into pieces. when he struck the pillar and Lord Nrsingadev killed him. And then when Lord Nrsingadev asked Prahlad Maharaj, so after his prayers, he said, so what blessing can I give you? Oh, I don't want any blessing. No, I'm not doing business with you. I just want your mercy. And then he said, no, you have to take a blessing. Well, then save my father. No. So, such magnanimity, such compassion, such love. Here's his father trying to kill him, and his own father. And Prahlad Maharaj. So we may think, how can I, this is like irrelevant. Here I am, so-and-so Das or Dasi in Guyana, even like struggling with my mind, struggling with my senses, so many difficulties. Who am I? How? This is something that many in the Christian religion, it's very common that many people who don't really understand the teachings of their founder, they think that, I'm saved and it doesn't matter what I do, because I can't try to follow the founder, I can't try to follow the Christ figure, because that's impossible. So let me just enjoy life. That's a very common thing. And so the same thing when we're talking about forgiveness, we think Haridas Thakur, Prahlad Maharaj, so many devotees were put into such, Gajendra, these devotees were put into such difficult situations. It's just totally irrelevant to me. But one thing I was thinking about is Srila Prabhupada. Can any of us do what Srila Prabhupada did? But yet, all of us are inspired by Srila Prabhupada's example, teachings, instructions, to better our lives, to take the next step. So this is something that we should understand from our own practical experience. Our Srila Prabhupada, or some great Vaishnava personality who we've been in contact with, whose character is impeccable, whose sadhana is so strict, who is, willing to do any kind of sacrifice for Krishna. But when those persons are actually close to us, which is why there is a parampara. If there's no parampara, we see these distant figures, and the more distant a figure becomes, the more divine, the more time is separated from that person. Just like in the Catholic Church, they have a thing called canonization, which means, if you wait long enough and there's enough good stories about them, then they turn into a saint. But in our case, these are great saintly persons. But if that great saintly person is in touch with us, which is why we have the parampara, then it becomes easier to understand. I can follow this example, this personality, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is a manjari, personal, intimate associate of Krishna, becomes a grihastha. He gets sick, he grows up in a Shakti family, worshippers of Durga, and all kinds of things. And Srila Prabhupada, he was married, his wife, just like we read the other day, she was afraid of me. Sometimes I said I would kill her, not meaning he was physically kill her, but just like, Prabhupada said, it doesn't matter who you are between husband and wife, there's always sometimes when there's a little argument. And then the wife will go to the father's home, and then, of course, when that happened to Ramanuja, she went and he took sannyas. So it doesn't always work. Be careful, lady. I don't think we have many Ramanujas here, though, so probably pretty safe. So the point is that Srila Prabhupada gives us the impetus. Otherwise, when we see someone that's close enough to us, then giving this example of forgiveness, of tolerance, or whatever saintly Vaishnava or moral or ethical example they may be giving, it becomes possible. We think that yes, and also because Srila Prabhupada, Prahlad Maharaj doesn't say, You have to tolerate like me. But Srila Prabhupada is telling us, you have to do this. And even though it seems unattainable at some point in time, because he says it, it becomes more of a reality. So just like doing this workshop, or this seminar, by these exercises, it becomes attainable. Thank you. My mind is boiling over with something. When I realized, after finally forgiving, that I had heard so many stories in Scripture about forgiveness, but I never forgave, it bothered me a lot. Because that had meant so many things that we have not yet become, not even trying to become, we have read about in our Scripture. So that it meant to me, well, a couple of things. It's too difficult to do, so I won't try. So it's a nice story, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't relate. It's just, like Maharaj was saying, to clarify what he was saying, in Christianity today, they do not believe that anybody can follow the example of Jesus. That is totally not even, right? Not even a question that what Jesus did, anybody could follow. They've completely written that off. So then you ask, well, what is the value of what he did, of the example he set, if we're not supposed to follow it? Because they've given up trying to follow it. And they've created a philosophy which ensures you will be successful as a Christian even if you don't follow not only his example, but his teachings. Isn't that interesting? Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur looked at this. He analyzed Christianity and said, you can do anything sinful, but if you ask Jesus to save you, you're saved. And you're not obliged to follow what he taught. And you can go back to heaven. And his comment was, this is insane. This philosophy is crazy. It doesn't make any sense. Why do you think they came up with that philosophy? Because they looked at the teachings, they looked at the example, and they just said, we can't do this. Do we do that also? A little bit, sometimes. Don't we? When we come to Krishna consciousness, we don't always understand what it is, but if you stay around long enough, you start to realize that if you really take it seriously, the goal is to become like Thakur Haridas, to forgive even those who are trying to kill you, to be that compassionate. That's what we're being trained for. The goal is to become a sadhu. Wow. If I would have known that before I joined, I never would have joined. I thought I was getting a free food and a place to sleep and I could dance all day. Now I've learned I'm supposed to actually have good qualities. Supposed to be kind to people that are not kind to me. Supposed to be compassionate to people that are rough with me. So I think when we find this problem where we read something but we go out unchanged, there's something inside of us that's unwilling, that's holding on, that's unwilling to change. Does that make sense? At least we should get the principle and say, okay, Thakur Haridas, what is the principle in this story and how does it relate to me and how can I apply it? At least that much we can ask. What's the principle? Some people aren't going to treat you the way you want them to. What's the principle? Be kind on your enemies. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, we should only want the highest good for our worst enemies. Did you know he said that? Any of you know he said that? We should only desire the greatest good for our worst enemies. How many of you desire the greatest good
for your worst enemy? Raise your hand. One. Oh, that was a question. That was.
I would like to read something.
Wait a second. Yes. But you understand the principle that there can be a psychological mechanism within us, whereas we don't absorb something, we just say, "That's not me. I could never be like that." Okay, maybe you're not going to be praying for the people who are killing you, but what's the principle there that you can get so that when you hear this story, you become inspired and say, yes, I can be more like this. I want to be more like this. I want to try to be more like this. Rather than saying, I can't. This is not me. Why even try? Which we often do. Okay, questions?
For the past 1 hour, you used the word compassion about 7 times.
What does it mean?
So I really would like you to explain how we can use compassion among ourselves. Or being compassionate,
Compassion amongst devotees or non-devotees? Particularly amongst devotees.
Among devotees and also non-devotees.
Well, I think one of the best ways we can understand it is to look at what it isn't. And I had a vivid experience of what it isn't on my way over to Guyana. And I was just, somehow or other, I was just watching my mind. If you travel in airports, there's a little bit of anxiety about getting there on time, getting through security, getting to the right gate. Then there's anxiety about what you're going to eat. If you have to do work, then where to plug in your computer, what seat you're going to get on the airplane. Is it a good seat, a bad seat? Who's going to sit next to you? Sometimes you sit next to someone, they're quite big, and they occupy like a third of your seat. Or somebody behind you talks really loud like this, so the whole way on the airplane, you're just hearing everything that they talk about. Kid kicking or crying or, So I was watching my mind, because am I going to get a good seat? Am I going to be on time? Where? Who can help me find? Can I get a cart? The suitcase is too heavy. Now my stomach's going beep, 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 feed me, feed me. Then there's a bathroom, oh, I've eaten too much, now beep, 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 let it out. And so I'm watching this and I'm thinking, the whole time I'm only thinking about one person in the universe, and that's me. I didn't think about anybody else. I didn't think about, is anybody else hungry? Is anybody else worried about whether they're going to get to their, Not that I could do anything about it, but it was just a realization that most of the time, who are we thinking about? We think about what's beeping down here. Then this time of night you think about a nice soft bed. Maybe you have air conditioning, put air conditioning on. I can go to sleep. Maybe if you have an iPod, I can hear some nice music or listen to record. We're so absorbed in me, comfortable, what's next? So what are we going to have for Prasadam tonight? Is it going to be enough for all 70 of us? Maybe I should run out first after the class. It's just, this is how we think. I mean, it's the reality. And material life, we're fixed in this. This is material life, we're totally fixed. It's just me. What can I get next? How can I be happy? How can I be comfortable? Isn't it? I mean, just watch your mind. That's what it does. Compassion pretty much is the opposite. Like, you take an example. Maybe it's not the best example for Vaishnavas, but I think it's a very good example to illustrate this point. Mother Teresa. You all know about Mother Teresa of Calcutta. So she was a nun. She grew up in Eastern Europe and she joined, in the Catholic Church they have many different missions. You can become a nun or a monk and join a mission. And at one point she wanted to leave the mission. The mission is, it's not that it's austere, everything's taken care of. You have a bed, you have food, you have your service. And usually these convents are quite nice. They're nice buildings, everything's clean. You get a nice bed, you don't have to sleep on the floor, get nice clothes to wear. She went out to start a mission to take care of poor people in the slums, kids in the slums, lepers like that. Who was she thinking about? You know, you like hanging out with lepers in India? Any of you? You want to go on a mission, a leper mission tomorrow? You want to sign up? You know, you can go distribute food to lepers. You want to just leave and take care of poor kids in India? Most people. As soon as you get to India, you're like, where are we staying, Prabhu? Where's the Prasad? Isn't it? Where can I buy a sari? Where can I buy a cool dhoti? You know, that's how we think. So, for compassion to manifest in the heart, we are thinking about other people. And particularly for devotees, we're thinking, how can these people be Krishna conscious? And we're not so much thinking, what are the inconveniences I have to go through to make them Krishna conscious? We're just thinking, how can I help them be Krishna conscious? Right? Just like Maharaj and I, we're here because we want to help you. It would have been a lot easier for us to just stay where we were. It took me, I left at 6 in the morning yesterday. Was it yesterday? Wednesday. I left Wednesday. I left at 6 o'clock in the morning, Wednesday. And I arrived at the airport 10 o'clock at night here and got here at 11. You know, after sitting 7 hours in the Miami airport, from flying to Miami and then flying to Trinidad, sitting on the plane for 2 hours. So, what did it bother me? Was I upset? I don't want to do this, I hate this, I'm never coming to Guyana again? Maybe if it was just for me, I might think that way. You know, finally get in Guyana and go, well, this is not such a great place, it wasn't worth it. But to preach, to help other devotees, to give Krishna consciousness, we don't think like that. We just think we want to help. And then everything else is, right? It's not such a problem. So that's my understanding of compassion. A compassionate devotee, his mind is, I want to give Krishna consciousness to other people. And that desire is so strong that he doesn't really think about, am I happy or am I not happy? He doesn't think like that. He doesn't check his happiness gauge. Everybody else in the material world has a little happiness gauge, and they go, am I happy? I'm eating dal rice and chapatis. Am I happy? Are they good? You know, I'm watching a movie. Am I happy? Is it a good movie? Isn't it? Oh, I bought a new set of earrings. Am I happy? I look good. I'm happy. They don't look good. I'm not happy. You know, I bought a new car. Do I like it? Am I happy? This is our consciousness. So a devotee, what Prabhupada wanted to do was train a class of people to not be like this. And he said, if 1% of the world is not like this, we can change the whole world. If we become devotees and it's all happiness gauge, how's my happiness meter doing? Then how will we spread Krishna consciousness? We can't.
Just referring back to the Dhruva Maharaj, about going back to compassion, that his mother was teaching him to be compassionate to that person who offended him. Srila Prabhupada said that, the recommendations of his mother to see that, well, she sent you to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so Dhruva Maharaj should have realized that by her curse or by her bad treatment, he became a pure devotee of the Lord. So this is another aspect of compassion, of seeing whatever people do to me, if it brings me closer to Krishna, then, I'm very grateful to them. I'm very, feeling compassion for people that aren't so nice to me. Because whatever they do, it inspires me to be a better servant of Krishna.
You had your question.
That's one thing more, Prabhu.
Oh, okay.
I remember that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said that someone who criticizes you is the best friend.
One who criticizes you is your friend.
Yes, and so whenever people criticize me, I try to apply that. But
whenever you criticize others, you apply that? Or whenever you criticize?
whenever someone criticizes, I try to apply that.
You give them a big hug, right?
And,
after you punch them in the face.
Sometimes, I apply it for a few minutes and then I just
blow up.
I don't feel satisfied.
Yeah. Well, what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur meant was, if somebody points out a fault in me, he's helping me become humble, and he's helping me see how I can improve. So in the broad range of things, that's actually someone who's really helping me. And therefore I could call him, someone who's helping me is really my friend. But generally, our friends are the ones who praise us. And so part of his statement was, and one who praises me is my enemy.
Right.
In I believe it's in Manu Samhita, it says the Brahman embraces criticism like nectar and praise like poison. He has that sense that this is really good for me. So if we have that sense, then we're okay. Our false ego gets in the way. That's the problem. We expect praise and we don't get it. Because we want our false ego to be gratified. You realize that within praise is one of the highest, probably the highest form of sense gratification. To be honored, to be praised. I mean, we want it so much. And it's very difficult not to get it, especially when you expect it from somebody. But if we have the sense to understand that if somebody points out a fault, it's like pointing out a disease, and now I can deal with it. So that's the culture. That's the culture we want to create. Not that we want to create the culture where we go around finding fault just because we want to be everybody's friend. Hey Prabhu, you're a jerk. I'm your best friend. But the culture of if there is a situation in which somebody does point it out, that we can be in the right frame of consciousness to think, this will help me. Especially important in marriage. Because sometimes the partners do point out faults, but they don't want to hear it. But if they accept it in this way, they can say, well, it's good. Like for me, let's give you an example of my life. Especially when I'm in India, as a Prabhupada disciple, the Indian culture in India is such that what I'm seeing is that I think in some places they treat me better than they treat their own guru. I was once at Radhanath Swami and I said, I went to one of your disciples' homes and he treated me just like you. He gave me his bedroom, I needed to go somewhere, he gave me money, I needed this, he fed me, and Maharaj said, my disciples don't treat me that well. So, and I'm so grateful when I come home and I just go from up in the sky down to earth, because you know what it's like. We don't have to say, You're at home, you do something stupid, they'll tell you. They're not going to be, oh Prabhu, you're the greatest. They go, why did you do that? That was stupid. But I appreciate that because it actually helps me. Otherwise I'll think, well, I'm a Prabhupada disciple, and I'm the big shot, and people are bowing down, and then I'm lost. So I think sometimes we can appreciate that we have the tendency to get proud, and if someone says something, even if we don't like it, we can say, wait a minute, that's good. It's keeping me on the ground. But it requires that kind of thinking. You want to say something? He had a question. He's waiting to ask a question. You were waiting to ask your question?
Yes, Prabhupada. I'd like to read something from Sri Chaitanya Bhagavad.
What's that?
So, a message on Sri Chaitanya Bhagavad.
Okay.
Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Sri Chaitanya Bhagavad, it says, the principal effect of chanting the name of Krishna loudly is that purifies the soul 1,000 times more than any other forms of worship. Loud chanting of Lord Krishna's name 1,000 times better than silent chanting. Loud chanting purifies both the chanter and the listener. One who chants softly liberates only himself. But one who chants loudly liberates himself and any other living entity who hears him. Hare Krishna. I have taken this out to check that.
Thank you. In Takaharidas, Haribol. You know, Takaharidas chanted 3 sets of 64. 64 silent, 64 softly, and 64 loudly. And asked, or the understanding is that 64 loudly was because he wanted to benefit other living entities. One time the devotees were walking, and I guess they asked Prabhupada, how could they benefit the trees? And Prabhupada said, go to the tree and say, Hare Krishna. Right? Was it the roots, or just the tree? Or and to say Hare Krishna to the tree, benefit the tree. Thank you. So, Rajarshi, you had something? Or someone else had something? Oh, yes.
Just based on Tridandi's Prabhu
Question?
is that being compassionate, when you show compassion to people as well as you express some humility towards them, they tend to abuse them.
Oh, you got the wrong friends.
In society,
Yeah, the same question. This is an interesting question. Because it brings up the question of, I guess it brings up the question of what is the right action? And do we compromise our actions? My gut feeling is we should never compromise our actions. But Chandaka Pandit says when you're dealing with a cheater, you may have to cheat. When you're dealing, so. But it doesn't mean you're a cheater. It's a broad topic. Now I don't want everyone going out cheating everybody tomorrow, because they assume everyone they're dealing with is a cheater. Sometimes we cheat because we assume someone's a cheater. But we shouldn't do that. But still, principle is to be straightforward, to be honest. And sometimes we stick to our principles, even if the result isn't good, because our principle is more important. I'll give you a story. Maybe it doesn't answer your question exactly, but when Prabhupada came to America, he didn't know if people could follow the principles. But he said, I never compromised, and I was prepared that no one would become a disciple, but I wouldn't compromise. So you have that principle also. Want to hear a funny story? So this is 1966. The hippie movement. You all know about the hippies, right? You have the hippie movement started right when Prabhupada came. And when it started, it was just becoming very quickly, the youth were changing and becoming very degraded. And one of the things they were basically doing, two things that they really didn't do before. They were taking hallucinogenic drugs, ganja, hashish, and other hallucinogenic drugs. And the chastity between boys and girls was just completely dropped. So, boy meet a girl, and the rest. So Prabhupada came into this culture which was free, they called it free love. Free love was every day you had a different girlfriend. That's what it meant. And you slept with a different girl every week or something. So there was a rock band at that time who came to the temple in 1966. It was a big rock band, and said they were like the emblems of the hippie culture, which was drugs and sex. And Prabhupada's whole lecture was on no illicit sex. To the emblems of sex, who were famous musicians, who you naturally would want to be kind of nice to, because if they like you, they'll tell other people, you know, there's thousands of people that listen to their music, maybe millions. And Prabhupada chooses to speak about no illicit sex. Vietnam War, all the hippies protested the Vietnam War. Some hippie asked Prabhupada, should we go to Vietnam to fight if we're drafted? Because at that time they were drafting people for the war. Prabhupada said, yes, it's your government, they're asking you to go, you should go. He said, you voted for them, it's democracy, so now you have to do what they say. Practically everybody walked out of the temple. I mean, what kind of thing is that to say to the hippies who were protesting against the Vietnam War, that you should go to Vietnam because your government's asking you? Practically everyone walked out. But that's Prabhupada.
Just another quick one. Another quick one was when they told Srila Prabhupada why Nixon was impeached. Is it because he had, you know, people secretly recording things? They said, what has he done wrong? The king must have spies. No.
Yes. I don't know if that answered your question. It's a complicated question because you have to look at every situation. But generally that's our principle, to do what's right. Oh, okay, so we're going to have to end here because we promised to stop at 8 and we're 13 minutes past. And you can still ask questions after we end. And so we'll just wait on your question and then we'll just end, we'll end the seminar, we'll make a few announcements, we'll end the seminar, then you can come up. And anyone who has questions, you can come up. We're going to start tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We're asking everyone to eat lunch before you come because we won't serve Prasad until 5? 5 to 6. And then we'll continue from 6 to 8. Okay. So we start tomorrow what time?
1 p.m.
Come with your stomach full. Not completely full, half full. Come with your stomach half full. And 1/4 water and 1/4 air. So Prabhupada Dev has some announcements.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you very much, Mahatma and Guru Prasad Maharaj, for a wonderful inspiration here this evening. Just a few points that we like to bring to the awareness of the devotees. That first of all, Dattavara who's been indicating to me since last night, and he's doing a wonderful service. So he's on YouTube. That is it? YouTube.
It's uploaded on YouTube, but I paste the link on Facebook, Dattavara Das.
Okay, so you just, and he's humbly requesting that you share that link with another friend.
Yes.
So this can go all the way, you know, people can get an opportunity.
Dattavara on Facebook, and then
Yes.
you'll get the link,
Yes.
and it'll link you to YouTube.
Yes.
What if we just go to YouTube?
So, well, it will be a little difficult to get the link. If you go on YouTube, you type in Dattavara, and then you see all the files, and there's 196 files, so it takes you longer. So if you go on Facebook, you get the direct link.
Anyway, so you approach him and he can give you, you know, the more details.
Yeah.
Or tomorrow night you can print it out.
If somebody's not on Facebook, then what?
Then you go to YouTube, you type in Dattavara, and you type in ISKCON Trinidad seminar in Guyana with Mahatma, His Holiness Guru Prasad Swami and Mahatma Das on forgiveness.
Make it easier?
I would think that, you know, you need to print out something and, you know,
Can you start a Guyana channel or something?
Well, actually, I have my own YouTube account under Dattavara, and this is where I put all my videos and links. I created a YouTube account under Tridandi Prabhu name, but it was never continued by one of the devotees here.
Okay, so we wouldn't spend much time more on that. You can contact Dattavara Prabhu to get more information, and please do, and pass it on to somebody. Maybe you can assist him to type out a little something, and you can print it and give it to everyone. Even on the Sunday program, you can circulate it Sunday. Even though the seminar, the forgiveness workshop here are being offered for free, as we all know, nothing is for free in this world still. It still requires something. We're giving the opportunity for devotees, if you want to bring some prasadam, for example, to exchange or to share with the devotees tomorrow or Sunday, that opportunity is there. Or the temple here are hosting a lot of devotees who are attending this workshop, and it means cooking for them and like that. So if you want to bring some vegetables, some boga, some grocery, that, some fruits, maybe can assist. And also your volunteer, is voluntary if someone would like to give a contribution, a little dakshina to His Holiness and Mahatma Prabhu. That is also welcome. Dr. Vishal would have given $10,000 last night, so thank you very much as a beginning. So like that, you're free. And please take note of the timing. That's 1 p.m. tomorrow, and it goes up to 8 with a dinner in between. And then Sunday it will be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then we'll be here for the Sunday love feast. Thank you very much. Yes, Prabhu?
One more thing. With the permission of Mahatma Das Prabhu and the Guru Prasad Swami, I would like to request your permission to run this under Mayapur.tv when I return to Trinidad. So I will run the 4 days program simultaneously on Mayapur.tv. You can check schedule under Mayapur TV to see when I'll be rerunning this program.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki